duo. The duo. The duo.
Hello, my name is Deonte. Welcome to episode 76 of the Duo Sports and Stuff podcast. I am joined by the one and only Joe Lunardi, Joey Brackets. Joe, how are you doing this afternoon?
I'm great, Deonte. Nice to meet you.
Likewise. And let's just start it off the top. Obviously, this past weekend, one of the craziest weekends in college hoops, man. Top 6 teams out of the top 10 fell on the road. What is this kind of a precursor to what we can expect with the tournament coming on in a few weeks?
Yeah, it sure feels that way. It feels like the whole sport knew that March was right around the corner, and it was time to deliver on what we've come to expect over the years. And when doesn't it deliver? Right, every time.
Yeah, every time it's just like we got a little taste of what we
Yes.
can expect in the next few weeks. When it comes to the selection committee and their kind of criteria, you hear a lot about quad wins, quad one. What does that mean? What for the average, watcher of college hoops, what is a quad one win?
Sure. Well, what the NCAA does and the members of the selection committee do is every game you play, every game a team plays falls into one of 4 buckets, and let's call them buckets 1, 2, 3, and 4. And because there's 4, they're called quads. So your hardest games are in quad 1, and your easiest games are in quad 2 or quad 4, excuse me, and everything falls somewhere along that spectrum. And a simple way, maybe the simplest way to look at it is all of the teams in the NCAA tournament, except for the winners of, the lower conferences, which qualify automatically, all the at-larges that are selected are basically quad 1 teams, top 50 or their equivalents. And, generally they like to see teams, how they do against comparable competition. So your record in quad 1 becomes among the most important criteria, as it should be.
Right. And what other criteria are they looking for as far as, we got the quads? Do they look at the Kim Palm rankings? Like, what other kind of criteria is the selection committee looking for when they're seeding the teams?
Well, in terms of computer rankings, probably their own would be first, and that's NET, the NCAA evaluation tool, NET being the shorthand of that. And it measures kind of the quality of your play based upon the quality of your competition, right? So, it factors in strength of schedule, margin of victory, offensive efficiency, defensive efficiency. What do you score? What do you allow? How does that compare with the others that you're fighting for spots with? This is year 4 of it, replacing something that was called the RPI, the rating percentage index. It's a better metric than the RPI. There's no doubt in my mind anyway. Is it perfect? No. Are there any of the computer rankings that are perfect? No. I think Ken Pomeroy that you mentioned is probably the best. And kind of the standard, but the net is right along with it, I've always looked at kind of an aggregation, a combination of the metrics, even before the days of the net, as a way of identifying outliers, right? Like that. A statistician would tell you, throw out the high and throw out the low and take an average, and that's what you get. Like, we probably all had teachers in high school and college who would throw out the high grade and the low grade, and
right.
Give you a grade on everything in the middle, because that's probably where your true talent and ability is. And there's something to be said for that.
Right. And I'm a Baylor grad, so I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about my Baylor Bears. And it's been the journey of the past few weeks with them, with everything they've gone through this season. How do you feel Baylor is as a contender heading into the tournament this year?
I think they're dangerous enough to repeat, which is staggering given what they lost. Right? What's been built at Baylor by Scott and his staff and all the people behind the scenes is frankly one of the greatest success stories in the history of college basketball. I mean, it's not like Baylor's ever a basketball school,
right?
And last year Gonzaga and Baylor in the regular season, and basically lapped the field. They were,
yeah,
not just a step ahead of everyone, many steps ahead, because they were older and just better. This year in Baylor's case, they've done it a different way, but and I wouldn't say anybody, Gonzaga included, is multiple steps ahead of the field the way it was the case last year. But both of them are 1 seeds today. Gonzaga will be on selection Sunday. Baylor's maybe 50-50, but they're not going to be worse than a 2, I guess. I mean, I suppose there's a chance that they lose out and drop to a 3, but they're going to be playing in the second weekend and have every opportunity to get back to another Final Four. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. Joe, one last question. I don't have much time with you. I'm going to get this one last question in. We have a segment where we have viewers and listeners of our podcast come on and, have a question. And you'll be our first guest to actually answer a question from one of our listeners. So let's check it out.
All right.
Joe, I don't claim to be a smart man, but I have a question that I think a lot of people share with me. Isn't every bubble, by nature of the team's performance and ranking, a weak bubble? Or are there real reasons that make this trope a worthwhile talking point? Thanks.
Is every bubble a weak bubble?
Weak bubble.
In the strictest sense, yes, I would agree. But then I would take it one step further and say, if they're all weak, then maybe they're just average.
Right.
Right. And I would actually argue, relative to other years, that this year's a stronger bubble. I think there are better teams in from a basketball sense. Forget resumes.
Okay.
I think that there are better teams in the hunt for those last few spots. But I would simply call bubble teams inconsistent, right? And if they were consistently good, as opposed to sporadically good, then they wouldn't be on the bubble. They'd already be in the field.
They'd be in the field.
So it's a great question. And I would say I may not be a smart man either, but I pretty much agree.
Yeah, that was from our guy Matt from the Between Two Bears podcast. But Joe, I know it was a short time with you, but definitely appreciate you hopping on with me and appreciate it. You have a great afternoon.